Hey guys, today I'm going to be doing a book review on Pandora by Susan Stokes-Chapman. Set in London, 1799, Pandora by Susan Stokes-Chapman follows aspiring jewelry artist Dora Blake, who lives with her uncle, who has let her deceased parents' antiquities shop fall into ruin. After a mysterious Greek vase is delivered to the shop, Dora grows curious by her uncle's suspicious behavior, and she turns to a young antiquities scholar to help her unravel the mysteries of the vase. What they discover about the vase ties to the myth of Pandora, and Dora learns more about her parents' death, what her uncle intends for this vase, and what she has to gain as well. First up, I did win this book through a Goodreads giveaway, so thank you very much, Goodreads. This is the type of historical fiction that I would call kind of your basic sort of historical fiction, rather like generic historical fiction. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Don't take me calling this basic historical fiction or generic historical fiction. Don't take that as like a bad way, because sometimes that's not a bad thing necessarily. But I think I would kind of call this kind of generic in a sense. There's a lot about the plot, a lot about the characters, just kind of a lot within their tropes even, that kind of just ring as basic sort of things that you typically see in historical fiction, if that makes sense. And yeah, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because at the end of the day, I still did really highly enjoy this book. And do not let the title of this book confuse you. It's called Pandora. Don't just pick it up without reading the synopsis on the back, thinking that this is like a Greek mythology retelling about the story of Pandora, opening the box, the infamous box, and letting loose all the evils into the world, This is not a retelling. So I really liked what Susan Stokes-Chapman did with this book, because she's not really doing like a traditional retelling. Rather, what she's doing, the story of Pandora is inspiring what is happening within this book, and what the characters are kind of getting up to, and what they're going through and whatnot. And yeah, a lot of this book has to do with this mysterious vase that may or may not have some sort of connection to the story of Pandora. And that's a big part of the thrill and excitement of reading this book, trying to kind of get to the point of like, okay, does this really truly have something to do with the Pandora legend? Is this vase the reason why certain weird circumstances are happening? It gets a little kind of mildly supernatural in places, and it's kind of up to you, the reader, to kind of determine what maybe has a bit of magical realism to it, or is it all just kind of purely coincidental? Is there some sort of reason for why something is happening? Maybe this vase is not as magical as maybe it seems. It's kind of up to you, the reader, to kind of figure out what is kind of magical and what isn't. And on the back of this book, it mentions that if you like something like The Essex Serpent and The Miniaturist, those other books, that this would be a book that you might enjoy. And for once, I actually agree, because a lot of times when books do that, like, hey, this is for fans of this type of book and this type of book, and a lot of times you sit and read it and it's like, well, that has nothing that's comparable to those other books, But for once, I actually agree with that statement, that this book, you can compare it to something like The Essex Serpent and The Miniaturist, because as I was reading this, I was definitely getting those particular vibes. Now, I have not read either of these books, the Essex Serpent or The Miniaturist. I've not read those books, but I have seen the miniseries adaptations of them, and kind of what I was getting from those adaptations, I was very much, like I said, I was getting those very similar vibes within this book. And I especially was thinking there was something reminiscent to The Essex Serpent with this book, because in The Essex Serpent, like I said, I've only seen the miniseries, so I'm kind of judging this off of the miniseries that I watched. In The Essex Serpent, it takes place in like a small little traditional village, a very superstitious village, and the villagers think there is some mystical sea beast or sea serpent or whatever that's out there killing their fellow villagers and whatnot. And so a lot of the book has to do with superstition and religion, and yeah, this small town. And yeah, it is, it's very atmospheric in its tone and its mood. And I think that's very comparable to something like kind of with this book, because this book does have a kind of particular sense of this atmosphere and moodiness and gloominess. Like I said, it takes place in 1799, you know, so yeah, the streets are dirty, there's a rawness, there's a realness, you know, there's not no like vibrant color. And once again, kind of playing to this whole idea of superstition. Superstition is kind of a big thing in this book. Like I said, you, the reader, are trying to question this mysterious vase that enters the character of Dora Blake, her life. This mysterious vase, does it have some sort of genuine connection to the legend of Pandora and whatnot? And yeah, for instance, there's like, at one point, there's some characters who get mysteriously ill. Are they ill because of this vase? There's several characters who suffer from some sort of weird injury that causes a severe infection that does not really heal properly. So yeah, do those mysterious unhealable injuries have something to do with this vase? You know, so yeah, once again, playing into this whole mindset of superstition, you know. Even Napoleon's invasion, once again, 1799, there's Napoleon, you know, Napoleon's in the picture too, you know. So even the invasion, or the impending invasion of Napoleon Bonaparte, there's a lot there too, and characters are questioning, does this vase have something to do with Napoleon? You know? So there's like that really nice, interesting historical context and backdrop even there, with the inclusion of Napoleon, you know, with his impending invasion. And I think Susan Stokes-Chapman, she has a nice little balance of kind of this whole thing of magical realism versus rationality and whatnot. I think there's a nice little fine balance there. And it never gets too over the top. It never gets extremely absurd at any point. It's always a really nice, fine balance that makes this book, I think, truly enjoyable to read. And all of this is handled in such a wonderful way. Once again, let me kind of just shout out the historical backdrop and the context and whatnot, because this book is taking place in Georgian London. You got the impending invasion of Napoleon, possibly. There's also the obsession with antiquities during this time period, which is very interesting. And it also tackles the disparity between the classes as well, you know, the people in poverty versus the people that are in the higher classes and whatnot. This novel is in some ways tackling quite a lot, but it's all done in such a way that's very cohesive, and it makes sense and it works. I also highly enjoyed all of the characters in this book for the most part as well, and I found a lot of them, even the supporting cast, I found a lot of them nicely fleshed out. Kind of in a book like this, I wouldn't normally expect this amount of characters to be as fleshed out as they were, which was very nice. I really liked our main character, Dora Blake. Her real name is actually Pandora Blake. So yeah, there's that tie to the Pandora myth as well, since Dora, her name, it comes from Pandora. I really liked our heroine, our leading heroine, Dora. She's an aspiring jewelry artist. Her parents died quite a while back. She's been living with her uncle. Her parents used to run an antiquities shop, but now the antiquities shop has run into ruin because her uncle is in charge of it, and he's not really taking care of it, and he's committing a lot of fraud and like not delivering actual antiquities, like stuff that's just fake and made up, and trying to scam people and yeah, commit fraud, you know, through fake antiquities. Yeah, Dora is very headstrong. She has a deep desire to be as independent as possible. She's not there to look for a handout. She's not there to look for a man to come and save her. Yes, she has a passion for creating her own jewelry, and it's like she knows the audience she needs to go for. You know, she knows that she has to reach out to the wealthy women in the upper classes in order for her to even start her own business and kind of create the types of things that she desires to make. She's also just a very natural, kind person. You know, she's very kind, she's very determined. She might be a tad bit over trusting on occasion. And oh my god, she has an adorable bird named Hermes. I have never loved a bird as much in my life as I have loved the bird Hermes. Oh my god. And then, yeah, another main character, you have her uncle, Uncle Hezekiah. Oh boy, does he make for a fantastic villain in this book. Her uncle is just absolutely greedy and kind of ambitious, but like almost like an ambitiousness where he doesn't really want to work too hard for his ambitions. It's like he just kind of wants things to fall into his lap in a sense. He thinks he's entitled to something, he deserves something. You get the idea that he was clearly jealous of his brother, who was Dora's father. He's definitely a con man. He's a sweet talker. He's a charmer. Yes, once again, he makes for a really fantastic opponent to Dora and her group of friends in this book. And as I keep mentioning, there's this mysterious vase that winds up at the antiquities shop that Dora and her uncle are running, and Dora is just very curious about this vase because her uncle has it hidden away down in the basement. But why? Why does this vase, why is it hiding down there rather than him selling it? Why is he not trying to make money out of it? So Dora is really curious about the value of this vase because it seems like this might actually be a genuine antiquities in their antiquities shop instead of a fake one that her uncle has been trying to, pawn off in his store, So this leads Dora to hunt down a young antiquities scholar. His name is Edward. Edward was also another really nice character. He has his own kind of inner demons that he's battling, his own tragic backstory. He's very much kind of an equal to Dora. He's strong. He's independent. He doesn't want handouts. And boy, oh boy, is Edward's backstory just full of all sorts of heartbreak and trauma. Yeah, guys, obviously I can't go into the spoilers for that, but yeah, you really feel for Edward throughout this book. And yeah, one of Edward's closest friends is a guy named Cornelius. Cornelius is an upper class gentleman. The way he knows Edward, because Edward definitely is kind of in a lower class, but his father worked for Cornelius's family. So then, yeah, when Edward's family, they all kind of died off. Poor Edward was left alone. So yeah, Cornelius's family kind of took Edward in and kind of gave him a proper education and proper means to kind of do things. There's almost kind of this Great Expectations sort of vibe to it. Edward, it kind of made me think of Pip, Pip from Great Expectations at times. I really like the Cornelius character. I love that friendship between him and Edward. Cornelius is definitely hiding his own inner secrets. That's very interesting. That was very interestingly explored in this novel, and it was done in a very believable fashion. I loved how Susan Stokes-Chapman kind of dealt with Cornelius's character. She was very kind of particular about it, and I kind of appreciated how she kind of handled his character. I just really liked the general relationship between Dora and Edward, because it's not this case of insta love. They don't immediately just look at each other and it's like, oh my god, I love you. There's a lot of build up to that relationship, which I also appreciated. Susan Stokes-Chapman, she takes her time kind of building that relationship up for them to learn to trust each other, for them to learn to rely on each other. It all really worked for me at the end of the day, and it made me just like them more, because sometimes I hate when relationships are just thrown together and they're kind of forced, because then I have a hard time kind of liking them and rooting for them. Sometimes I like the slow burn, I like the slow burn and building that up and building up their characters as individuals first before you put them together. And like I said, even the secondary supporting characters were all very fleshed out as well. There's like some brothers that work for Uncle Hezekiah. There's some brothers that are really nicely fleshed out. Their maid servant Lottie, she's fleshed out in some very fascinating, interesting ways. Yeah, supporting characters. Once again, I wasn't expecting them to have anything, you know, much depth or personality, but they are given quite a bit on occasion. There's not a wasted character. That's what I'm trying to say. There's not a single wasted character to this narrative. Every single character serves some sort of value and function within the narrative, and I like that. So, overall, I really enjoyed this book at the end of the day. Like I said, there is something rather generic and basic about it, but I really just fell in love with the characters and the world that Susan Stokes-Chapman built. You know, really going into this world of antiquities during this time period. I really enjoyed the historical backdrop. And once again, this is not a traditional Greek mythology retelling. Susan Stokes-Chapman really does her own unique spin, incorporating the story of Pandora into this book, which is really nice and really interestingly done. Just really refreshing, you know, because there's so many books out there right now doing Greek mythology retellings, and it's kind of gotten to the point that they're all kind of the same and they sound the same. So this is kind of doing something completely different with its own unique spin while still incorporating those aspects of Greek mythology within there. And I don't know about others who have read this book, but the way this book is, I wouldn't complain if Susan Stokes-Chapman did like a second book to this or a third book, you know, because Dora and Edward, they deal in antiquities. I'm sure there's other stories that could be told within this universe and within this world and whatnot. So yeah, if Susan Stokes-Chapman decided to do like another book or two with these same characters, I don't think I would complain. I think it could easily turn into almost like historical fiction mystery thriller sort of books, if that makes sense. I think that would be a fun time. So you guys, that is it for this review of Pandora. In the comments below, have you guys read Pandora? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Or if you haven't read it, do you plan on reading it sometime in the future? Just let me know. So that's it for this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you like this video, you may like these other videos. Bye guys.